I'm Roy Potter, a former U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel. Welcome to the Potter Expositor. Hi ladies and gentlemen, today is December 29th, 2017. I'm Roy Potter and this is the Potter Expositor. I want to welcome you here, and yes, it's been a few days since I've put anything on YouTube. Certainly a few days since I've dressed up, like this. I guess the reason why I decided to come on today is because I think it's time to expand our thinking, okay, and our action, as we've talked about. Of course, the idea of expand your thinking is a phrase from Q. And in regards to Q, as you know, I've watched it quite closely, and I've had some concerns about it, primarily that it could be infiltrated, and that was the reason why, as we've talked about, it moved from 4chan to 8chan, which didn't resolve it completely, but it certainly helped, especially with the new trip code plan of the board owners. The other thing I was worried about is that we get so involved in puzzle solving that we wouldn't do anything, right? And there are others who have said the same thing. I was talking with a very good friend the other night, and he was saying, well, what has Q really accomplished? What has he done? Where are the indictments? Who's going down over all this corruption? And that's a legitimate question. However, and this is where I think the point is made, and think about it. And a lot of people have talked about this, but let's put it in another perspective, put it another way. If Trump, with the corrupt courts that we have in the United States, all fueled, so many fueled by leftist Marxists, okay? If he had gone through the regular channels, and if he had tried to do this thing openly out front, think of the hue and cry out of all the people that would not understand what was going on. How many people have been duped by the mainstream media, by the cabal? How many people think that the truth is what the MSM says it is? Despite all of the attempts by the alternative media, a lot of people are still asleep. And I'm going to use a New Testament quote here, okay? The gospel needs to be preached to all nations, kindreds, tongues, and people. And the alternative media, as good as it is, can only reach so many, because we have a tendency to view news places that verify our prejudices, verify our biases. We very rarely step out of that. And that's even true with the alt-right, right? I mean, seriously, you have to admit that. It takes some discipline to be willing to look at the enemy sources, okay? It takes discipline to do that. But of course, the best way to understand your enemy is to read their materials, to study them. But that's really too hard for most people. So, and Q explained all this, okay? And Trump has alluded to it. They needed to come up with a solution to be able to spread this word across the world, which is really what's happening. Not based on dogma, not based on the rule of some particular man, but on basic principle, which is what I've called for a long time. What have I said? Right? That we don't worship personality. We're supposed to worship God, which is principle, true principle, okay? So what Q has done is he has enabled a discussion to occur without prejudice other than along the lines of, is the government good or bad, that kind of thing, which we should be asking anyway, no matter what. But allowed this discussion about the perfect law of liberty, about getting rid of evil amongst us, identifying it, without the scruples, without the scandals, without the power of institutions, be they ecclesiastical or governmental, preventing us from making those questions and finding our answers. And that brings another point. Q is formed after the Socratic method, which is asking the question and let the student find the answer. Okay, through discussion, through different study means, etc. And what does that accomplish? Well, first of all, we're not being spoon-fed like the mainstream media wants to do to you, right? You're being encouraged. I don't want to say forced. If you want to know the answers, I guess you're kind of being forced, but you're being encouraged to search these out on your own. And not everybody's going to be right. And that's the beauty of it, really. Okay, that really is the beauty of it. Because as Jordan Sather said so well, and so many others have, the mere act of us all being involved in this is going to bring in everyone's different talents, gifts, abilities. And it'll all play a major part. And it really is true. So without force, not using force of institutions, be they ecclesiastical or political, without the use of force, but of taking advantage of those who have an inquisitive mind or cultivating an inquisitive mind, Q has put questions out for us all to search without any pressure, except our own willingness to go find the answers. And isn't that really what the good news is all about? The awe of discovery of the truth? I guess I'm philosophizing a little bit, but I just wanted to point that out. So, no, Q may not be responsible for getting the indictments served and all of that. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But the opening up of everyone's minds to these questions and to what true liberty is really about and who has been responsible for suppressing that in mankind on an unbelievably massive level, because they've had thousands of years to do this. And it's time to throw them off. A writer in the New York Times today came out and attacked this thing with Q and said it was, the calm before the storm was the new Pizzagate. You can see the evil in these people on that side who are trying to cover up their crimes, their sins. It's easy to see what the truth is if you'll just look, but they want to tell you not to even look. And that should be your first warning sign. When somebody tells you not to pay attention to something, didn't you learn that as a child? The first time you're told not to touch the hot stove, what's the first thing you do? You touch the hot stove. Now, the people that did it in that situation were doing it because of their concern for you. Okay? But a wise parent will allow you to get as close as you can without getting hurt to find out what the danger is, right? Well, the MSM and the evil side doesn't do that. They want to dictate to you what you can and can't think, what you can and cannot ask questions about. And so they feed this constant diatribe of evil falsehoods and false accusations. As a matter of fact, one of the most serious of sins, and I've talked about it before, is bearing false witness. And they do it all the time. So the Socratic method, asking the questions, is the most honest way of teaching. Not forcing what you believe down somebody's throat, be it with the power of the media or the government or whatever, but by posing the question and letting them find the answer for themselves. And then they own the answer. Do you see that? Pretty brilliant. Christ used the same type of teaching method, actually, in a different sort of way, but it was the same. So down below in the description box, I've placed Jordan Sather's explanation of the Q phenomenon, and it's about a half hour. I would boil it down into a nutshell of it's the whole purpose of Q is to let us awaken with the questions, okay, not being force-fed. I think that's really the bottom line. And it's spreading because people hunger and thirst for the truth. They can feel it. And so this is their chance to search it out for themselves. And the evidence is all there. Despite what the New York Times or Hillary Clinton or any of the evil people say, the evidence is there. You just have to have the willingness to admit it's there. And that's the beauty of the entire thing with Q. So let's not be too hard on Q. He served a purpose. They've served a purpose. And addressing the situation with Trump going after the criminals and the traitors and the people of the cabal, I can't definitively tell you that anybody's been collared. I can't definitively tell you that. But going back to the circumstantial evidence that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, look at all the things that are happening. The executive order calling for the confiscation of the property of those involved in human rights abuses and all that entails. It's an incredible document when you read it. It's probably the most incredible executive order that has ever happened. And because we are in a national emergency, because we really are at war internally, with this evil side that's infiltrated our government and our institutions. By the way, they like to say that Trump is attacking democracy and democratic institutions. And that mere statement should be your first warning. We're not a democracy, okay? We're a constitutional republic. So when they say that he's attacking the democratic institutions, that tells you something right there, that there's a problem, because we're not a democracy. Democracy is evil, right? It's as many commentators have said, it's two wolves and a lamb at dinner, right? Who's going to be the dinner, right? So the purpose of protecting our individual rights, our individual quest for truth, is what a constitutional republic is about. A democracy is force. Believe it or not, it's a form of force. It's not anarchy. That's a whole other situation, okay? All right. So getting back to the people that aren't being collared, or that we don't see being collared out in the open, look at the circumstantial evidence, okay? Again, the executive order from Trump. I don't know if a lot of you have been following this, but the unexplained airport closings and the circumstances surrounding that. The unexplained, like with the plane that was headed to Japan, to Tokyo, and turned around after it was in flight for 4 hours. Why did they let it get that far? Very interesting, think about that. That wasn't an accident. The way they let that happen wasn't an accident, okay? And then the situation with all the planes that don't have their markers flying down towards Guantanamo. The undercurrents of information that guilty people are being taken, arrested, and being processed. Which brings up another question. Because this is a national emergency and a war, we need to be careful, and I talked about this with another individual last night. We need to be careful not to throw away our constitutional principles, right? Under a situation of a clear and present danger and a national emergency, like this one is, obviously, I don't want to say the Constitution is suspended, because those people still have their rights. But what you have to do is, because it is a war, you have to remove the enemy combatants. Okay, you just have to. And it's not a very nice process. Believe me, if Hillary Clinton had gotten in, she would have used the same idea, but to go after the people that are searching for the truth, that are trying to press for the perfect law of liberty, because that's her enemy. So war is a strange thing, and sometimes the division between black and white is pretty hard to see. But when somebody's shooting at you on the battlefield, okay, you don't say, okay, stop, let me read you your rights. No, you got to take that enemy combatant out first. You just have to. And so what I'm saying is that even though the military is taking care of this, it would appear, right? Eventually, we would hope that all of the constitutional principles are afforded to these enemy combatants, and that's really what they are, okay? It really is what they are. From Podestas to Hillary to Comey to McCabe to Brennan to Clapper to Obama to Holder to Jarrett to Rice. I mean, we could go on down the list, right? And then all of the people that are there supporting them. In other words, they're soldiers, all the way down to the MS-13. Okay, all of those. Eventually, we will have to ensure that we don't fall in the same trap of doing the evil things and suspending the Constitution permanently like Hillary would have done. So just a word of caution. Remember, we're in a war. You can't treat enemy combatants, you know, especially in this situation. If what's happening is what it appears to be happening is that massive numbers of these criminals, these pedophiles, these leftists, these Marxists, these traitors to our government, to our people, to our Constitution, are being hauled in massive numbers. That's too much for the system. In a war, just think about it. You're fighting the Nazis in World War II. Think about if you had to grab all those people and take them to a court. Eventually, the courts will happen, but you're looking really at this point for the central command, okay, kind of thing, and taking down the soldiers only insofar to keep them from doing damage. Okay, so just look at it from those points of view. I hope that made sense, and I just wanted to make sure that we talked about that today. So something is very definitely happening. I've been busy doing some other things. It wasn't just Christmas. You know, there are guilty people everywhere, and we need to keep track of them. I'll just leave it at that. Okay. And so that's, and you can do the same thing in your areas. I'm not saying to persecute anybody, but if there's hard evidence, and sometimes that's hard to find unless you know what you're looking for, when there's hard evidence that somebody's doing something evil and criminal, you know, they need to be tracked. They need to be pinpointed and understood what they're about. And so that's kind of some of the things that I've been doing, as well as enjoying the holidays. Okay. And I've been out of commo range for quite a bit. So thank you for your, as a matter of fact, it's very humbling to see so many people say, hey, where are you? We miss you. Well, I don't really tell you much. You know, I really don't. I'm a commentator more than anything else. And yeah, I have a lot of background. I see grand amounts of evidence across the spectrum. But there are others out there who do such a good job, and I won't mention their names. You know who they are. I'd like to, but if I get started on that, I'll be making another long list. But go check those people out. A lot of them have really taken the time and the effort to upgrade their presentations with, you know, new computers, new formats, all sorts of things. And that's really wonderful. And it shows you that this information is something that people hunger and thirst for. Where have I heard that before? You must hunger and thirst after righteousness. You must hunger and thirst after the truth. You have to desire it above anything else. Does that sound familiar too? And this is being preached to the entire world without dogma attached to it. Pretty significant. Okay. Okay, I don't know if I should talk about this next thing, but I've gotten to know Monty of Montegraph pretty well. You know, we've had a lot of chats, and I just thought this is kind of like an advertisement. I don't know when it'll happen. We haven't made any definitive plans, and he might not appreciate me talking about this. But he and I were talking about some issues the other night, and he's put out some great information. Sometimes it's a little hard to understand because he uses a lot of symbolism, and that's really wise, as a matter of fact, for him to do that. Let you find the answers again for yourself. Do you see? He's kind of like Q in that regard. Have you ever noticed that? Yeah, he is. He doesn't spit it out directly, you know. He kind of gives you a hint, and then you got to kind of go figure it out. And that's really a great method of teaching, and it expands, as Jordan Sather called it, it expands the collective consciousness, right? Which is a good thing, of individuals all connected together, because we all are connected, but we have individual liberties, of course. But anyway, getting back to Monty, so we were talking last night, and we came up with this idea that he and I are going to get together. We're going to do a chatty-do at the same time. We're going to be in the same room, in other words, okay? At some point in time in the future, we're going to sit down and we're going to have a chatty-do, have a drink, and just talk about, what does he say? We're going to talk about absolutely nothing. Okay, so you can look forward to that. Again, I don't know when it's going to happen. And forgive me, Monty, if you didn't want me to spill the beans, but, you know, I was, one half of the conversation. So I figure, you know, I can do that. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think it'll be dynamic, and I think it will be a lot of fun, a lot of fun. You'll probably get to know Monty a lot better than you think you know him. Okay, so that's in the future sometime, and I'll leave it for that today. I won't go any further in any depth. Just to let you know that things are happening. It's obvious. It's obvious. When you plot these things out, Scott Anthony doing the work he's done on those airplanes, the different, you know, the tail numbers and where they're going and when they're marked and not marked, when they're cloaked and when they're not, all of this activity. Go look at Scott Anthony if you wonder what I'm talking about. He's on YouTube, Scott Anthony, ScottAnthony. He's also on Twitter at Scott Anthony USA, and I've talked about him before. And of course, Tracy Beans is still doing her wonderful presentations on everything. She's a fantastic investigative reporter and has done a fantastic job on the Q threads as well. And again, there are others I could mention. There are just so many. But I wanted to wish you a Happy New Year. I might be back up before the 1st. I don't know. Well, we'll see. Maybe with some more concrete information rather than just philosophizing. Maybe some concrete information like Isaac Green put out yesterday. He's with Anti-School, another excellent source. For such a young guy, I don't know how he put all this together. I think he's got some connections he's not letting on to. At any rate, Isaac explained that today there's going to be a lot of information on the Wiener laptop emails coming out, you know, and I have no doubt that that's going to happen. It really has to at some point. So that might be something more that we can talk about. We could speculate on what's in there. I think we all know. I mean, it's pretty obvious if you've asked the questions and looked at even the circumstantial evidence. But that's another thing that we'll be able to discuss when that occurs. So when more concrete information comes out about who, what, where, when, why, how, I'll be back, okay? And from this point, we'll just see what happens. Hey, thanks for coming. Thanks for everything that you say. I know there are a lot of trolls out there. You know, I'm really amazed when I put up a video. I mean, I barely even get a chance to close the YouTube window, the upload window, and to go to the actual upload, and they're already 2 thumbs down. I mean, not even any time for people to look at the video, and I've already got 2 thumbs down. Somebody's watching or has that automatically put on there, and I've known about this for years, and this has been going on for a long time. So, not that disturbs me, but it just it amuses me, you know, is what it does. So, at any rate, like I say, when some more substantial information comes out, I'll definitely be back with you. And please, you know, Twitter, I'm really busy on Twitter most of the time now. And I know a lot of you don't like social platforms, but YouTube's one, of course. But Twitter, at least right now, they're censoring us. There's some really bad activity going on there. But they're also now, I mean, they're looking at antitrust against Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Google, etc. So this might turn around. Don't give up on it yet. And again, like Alex Jones says, right? We're going to use the platform because so many other people do it. So open a Twitter account and come take a look at what's happening there. You want to be selective. You know, a lot of people wonder why I don't follow them back. I probably have I don't know, a few thousand followers now. It's under 10,000, probably like 5. I don't really check it that often. But on Twitter, a lot of people, you know, it's kind of a courtesy that when somebody follows you, you follow them back. But as I explained before, I use Twitter as a tool to gather information. And so if I'm following too many, I don't mean to insult anyone, but if I'm following too many, I can't keep track of the things that I need to so that I can keep people informed. Because I really do use it as a news source, okay? I double check things on there. I don't just take it for value, face value. I've made a couple of mistakes. Can't remember exactly what they were, but I quoted one thing. It turned out that it was actually from a source that wasn't very good. But that's when I get in a hurry. So I have to force myself to slow down. And usually when I find something like that, I'll say, oops. Okay. It doesn't happen with me very often, but, you know, everybody's guilty of it to some extent. It's just that we have to recognize it when it happens and be willing to belly up to the bar and admit our mistakes. Okay. That's what we are. You know, we're human, right? We're just learning how to be perfect. We're not there yet. Okay, everybody. Talk to you in a little while. Happy New Year.